this is Saturday, November 9th at North Carroll Library with Mr. William Hampt for the Carroll History Project, interviewing veterans and individuals about their experiences. Are you from Carroll County originally?
I'm from Baltimore County originally.
Oh, okay. Just across the line, or?
Well, down around Pikesville.
Okay, okay. And then you moved out here to Carroll County at some point?
Right.
Did you graduate high school there in Baltimore County?
No, I didn't.
You didn't graduate from high school?
I quit school and joined the Navy.
Oh, did you? How old were you then?
17 years old.
17? That was the minimum age, I guess, right?
Right.
You'd be able to take it. And what year was that?
1962.
1962, okay. And I guess you went to Great Lakes for boot camp?
Right.
And everything. And then, was there additional schooling that you did there at Great Lakes, or did they send you to the fleet?
Just boot camp, and then I had on-the-job training aboard ship.
Okay. And what was it the Long Beach, your first ship that you were on?
USS Long Beach.
Okay.
The first nuclear-powered surface vessel of the United States.
Was that at Norfolk?
Norfolk, Virginia.
Norfolk, Virginia, and everything. I did a little bit of research and everything, and it says on your shirt there, the last true cruiser. There were I think there was 4 or 5 other ships that were identified as cruisers.
As cruisers.
But they were originally commissioned as other types of vessels.
Right.
And this was the last one that had the keel actually laid as a cruiser.
As a cruiser.
And everything. I thought that was interesting that they outfitted those others and then called them cruisers, but the
right.
Long Beach was the
well,
was the
what they did, they downsized them from cruisers to frigates.
Right.
And then they downsized them again from frigates to destroyers.
Okay. But this one was actually laid as that and everything.
Yeah.
Now, was that fully functioning as a nuclear-powered ship when you got to it, or was that in the process?
No, it was fully commissioned.
Okay.
When I went aboard.
Right. And then I'm sure you sailed from Norfolk, around the world probably.
We went all the way around the world.
Right. Without having to refuel and refit along the way with supplies and water and all that stuff and everything.
Right.
But as far as
we made our own water aboard ship.
Okay.
From the seawater.
You had the desalinization
yes.
facility on board the ship and everything. And then what was your rate? Was that the rate?
Yeah.
Your MOS
right.
when you were in when
I
you were
was a fireman.
Okay. So.
But that doesn't mean that I put out fire.
Yeah.
I was a fireman, meaning that I was an engineer striker.
Right. Well, okay. Now this was nuclear powered, right?
Right.
So, what did the engine room consist of?
The engine room was the same as it would be on a conventional ship.
Right.
The difference would be we had nuclear reactors providing the steam.
Right. Boiling the water, basically.
Boiling the water.
Right.
And of course, the earlier ships used oil.
Right. To heat the water with and everything. So maybe I misunderstood. You said you were a fireman and striker. Was that with ordnance, or was that in the engine room?
That was in the engine room.
In the engine room, okay. So what were your duties in the engine room then?
Well, one of my duties in the engine room was desalinization plant.
Okay.
I operated the desalinization plant.
Right.
I also became very proficient at what they called a cold iron watch. If the ship was in port and the engine room was shut down, we still had equipment in the engine room that had to be maintained and on the line.
Right.
And that was a second-class petty officer's watch.
Really?
And it took me 3 months to qualify to
for that position.
For that particular position.
Right. Yeah. An individual earlier was talking about he was on a ship that was in the Mediterranean. This was in the 1960s, and they were deployed around the island of Crete. There was problems on Crete and everything, and they were just moving at about 5 knots. And he said that that made the desalinization process difficult. I guess when the ship moves at a fast pace, it works better or more proficiently.
Right.
Or
Yeah. You have to have a certain amount of water going through the distilling plant
right.
to make it operate efficiently. Me and another guy aboard ship got to the point where we could boil water at 93 degrees.
Well, that's interesting. Is that under pressure, I guess, right?
That's under a vacuum,
Oh, under a vacuum.
30-inch vacuum.
Oh, okay, okay. Huh.
If you could maintain the 30-inch vacuum, you could get the internal first stage to flash at 93 degrees.
That's incredible. Wow. Now, how did you learn that?
Trial and error.
Just seeing what you could do down there in the
They
engine
wanted
room and
they
everything.
wanted as much clean water aboard ship as they could possibly get.
Right. Yeah. And that was used for everything, for cooking and for
That was used for
showering
cooking. That
and-
was
and-
showering. Everything aboard ship.
right. And so the ship would be self-sustaining, basically.
Oh yeah.
So you wouldn't have to take any supplies of water or anything like that on. So do you have any memorable voyages that you went on when you were on the USS Long Beach?
Well, I think one of the most memorable things that I did, we were anchored out of Karachi, Pakistan. And there was a terrible storm going on. And I was a boat engineer for the first Liberty launch to go ashore. And on the way in, a beluga whale came up beside the Liberty boat. Now the Liberty boat's 33 feet long. The whale, you couldn't see his head and you couldn't see his tail. You could see his back and his dorsal fin, and it was so close I could reach out and touch him.
Oh my goodness. Wow. He was just saying hi, I guess.
He
huh?
was just coming up to see what was going on.
When you said engineer on the Liberty launch, were you the engine operator on
I
that?
was,
Is that what that meant?
right, I took
Yeah.
care of the mechanical workings of the boat.
Uh-huh. How far was it from the ship to the dock
were-
or wherever we were going?
We were about 3 miles out.
Oh, wow. So that was a pretty significant voyage then that you
Yeah.
had to make back and forth and everything. And how many people would you carry at a time?
At least 90.
Oh, really? Wow, that's a large
Yeah.
launch then and everything.
Yeah.
That's an incredible size. I envisioned one that would only maybe hold 10 or 15 and everything. Well, that's a huge. They had, and I guess they put that was up on the deck of the cruiser and everything.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You kept it up on there.
We had I believe there were 6 of them.
Wow, that's incredible. Huh.
Well, the ship was 753 feet long, so we had plenty of room
Room
for
to-
them.
All kinds of other stuff on the deck of the ship and everything like that. And did you make? I guess you transited the equator at some point.
Oh yeah.
And did you have your? There's a name for.
Well, before you
turtleback, shellback,
shellback.
shellback. That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
before you cross the equator, you're a pollywog.
Okay.
Okay. After you've been initiated crossing the equator, then you become a shellback,
Right.
and you get all the certificates and all the accolades that go along with that.
Right. Uh-huh. I understand that some of those initiations can be rather ingenious. Is that the right word?
Very ingenious.
Now, would that be ship-wide that they would do that, or would it be department-wide?
That is ship-wide.
So they line up all the polywogs and have them.
They're all named, and they're all in a lined up in a line in alphabetical order, and they have to go through this initiation line up on the fantail.
Okay.
and you get doused with water. I don't know if you know what a shillelagh is, but it's a rope with knots in it, and they soak it in salt water,
Oh, goodness.
and then they dry it out, and it becomes as stiff as a board. And they use that as a whip as you go through the
Oh,
line.
my goodness.
You get to kiss the baby's belly and the king's ring. You have to almost swim through some kind of slime. I don't know what that was. It was some kind of green slime.
Somebody came up with it somehow, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you come out the end of the line, they'd hose you down and consider you a shellback then.
Outstanding.
We had a special meal
Uh-huh.
that was, well, I've got the menu at home, but it's not very appetizing.
Oh, so this is not an elegant meal. This is
No, this is not an elegant meal by any stretch of the imagination.
something they came up with to further harass and everything. I
Yeah.
guess, huh? Do you know where you crossed the equator? Well, Atlantic or Pacific or anything like that, or
It was in the Atlantic.
I think it was Atlantic. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they could have just secured all leave from then on out, and it wouldn't make any difference. The crew was so beefed up and revved up that it was just an enjoyable thing.
Really. Yeah.
It was really a state of passage to go through this initiation.
Really. Yeah. A lot of cohesion, then I imagine, through the whole crew and everything
Exactly.
like that. And, yeah, interesting. That's interesting. Now, would officers and enlisted?
Officers and enlisted.
Oh, really? No exemption for an officer or anything like that.
No, indeedy.
Wow. That's it. That's
The captain of the Big E, the Enterprise, was a pollywog.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. He was a captain and had never crossed the equator?
Had never crossed the equator. They launched him off a catapult.
Oh, no.
They blindfolded him, set him on a wheeled thing,
Right.
and of course he was the senior officer, so he got to go first.
Right.
And the Bainbridge and the Long Beach pulled up alongside, so we could watch. And they launched him off this catapult. He must have went 100 feet out in front of the ship.
They had boats in the water and everything like that.
Right,
Pull people down in the water and everything.
they had him tied off in a safety rig,
Right.
but they had a blindfold on him. And just before they let the cat go, they pulled the blindfold off and let the trigger, and off he went.
I'm sure that was an experience and a half and everything.
Yes,
like
it was.
that. Gosh. Very, very interesting. And did you ever make it, you made it to Pakistan and everything, did you ever make it to the Far East, like Japan or Philippines or anything like that?
We circled them, and when we took the same course when we went around the world as the Great White Fleet did 100 years before. And they did it on coal,
Right.
and we did it on nuclear power without stopping. Well, we stopped 15 places around the world to do fire firepower demonstrations
Right.
to the different countries that we had passed. or stopped in at. The missile firings were the most amazing. They would send out a drone that you couldn't hardly see. It wasn't much bigger than a flare. And those missiles would knock that flare right out of the sky.
And this was in the 1960s, right?
Back in the
Wow.
1960s.
That's incredible. We had the technology then. Even
We
to-
had the technology to do it.
Yeah, incredible. And I assume those were allied countries that we were demonstrating this for
Yes.
and everything like that.
Right.
Now, was that part of a battle group or was that just the USS Long Beach?
We were Task Force 1. That was the USS Enterprise, the USS Long Beach, and the Bainbridge. All three of those ships were nuclear powered.
Nuclear powered and everything like that. Wow, incredible.
And we made Task Force 1, and they detached us from the Navy so we could make that trip.
Oh, okay, okay. It was a goodwill tour.
It was
lack
a
of better
goodwill
term.
tour,
Right.
yes.
And everything all around the world and everything. So how long did you end up spending on the USS Long Beach?
Almost 4 years.
That was your enlistment time, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
you had-
stayed there 4 years. I was really lucky because most of the time they send you to a duty station for 2 years and then they move you on to another, and then another and then another. But I think my chief realized that I was growing in the systems of the ship. I mean, I knew the systems in the reactor plant and I knew the systems in the engine room, so I could work either place.
Right. And he didn't want to let that experience go away.
He didn't want that experience to go away.
Right, yeah. So he kept you. You don't know if reassignment orders came down that he was able to quash, or maybe you just never raised your name up to be reassigned.
Maybe he just never raised my name up to be reassigned.
You were
I
down
don't-
there somewhere in the ship and
I was doing a good job and
kept your head down. You didn't have to worry about doing anything, So,
never had an hour of extra duty.
really, that's incredible. Yeah, that's interesting. And all that time and everything.
So they didn't hardly know I was aboard.
There you go. Sometimes that's a good thing,
Yeah.
2 or 3 ranks back in the group there, and
Right.
just kind of keep going along.
Just,
going along
just
and
keep my head down and
everything. Right.
do what I was supposed to do.
So
and
what rate did you leave when you left finally? What rank or grade, I guess?
Rate.
E4, E5?
I was still a fireman.
Okay.
And one of the reasons being is because I wanted to be an engineman and they wanted me to become a machinist mate. If I became a machinist mate, I would have to work in the engine room and the reactor plant. If I became an engineman, I can work in the 13 different shops. The plumbing shop, the carpenter's shop,
Oh, okay.
the machine shop, the ship fitter shop, all those different shops as an engineman. But if I became a machinist mate, I could only work in the engine room and the
Right. Kind of narrowed your scope and everything.
Yeah.
Like that. And the other give. Well, and then you saw different areas of the ship and everything like that.
Right.
Interact with different people. and
Yeah.
Kind of broadened your
Yeah.
your scope on board the ship and everything like that. So, well, we really appreciate you coming out today. What I'd like to ask you, final question would be, is if you'd like to impart anything to veterans today, or even young people today that are thinking about joining the military, whether it would be the Navy, the Army, Air Force, or whatever. What words of wisdom would you impart to those people?
With my experience that I had in the U.S. Navy, I would recommend to every young man that's coming out of high school that does not want to go to college to go into the military for 4 years, because they'll come out with an education that they'll never get anywhere else.
as far as classroom education, but then there's the world education
There
as
is,
well.
there is a double-edged sword in their education that they'll never get anywhere else.
And that experience certainly stands you in good stead as far as being a responsible adult and everything, contributor
Yes.
to society and
Right.
everything.
And leadership.
Right. Yeah. Being able to be in charge of a group of people and making things happen.
Right.
Right. Well, again, we thank you again, Mr. Hampt, for coming out today and everything, and we look forward, if there's any other time that you'd like to come and talk to the Carroll History Project at the Community Media Center, that give us a ring and we'll sign you up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.